Hello there, this is Being God's Obedient Servant channel. And today's Bible study, we're going to be doing 2Kings chapters 6 and 7. And once again, if you're new to this channel, you just clicked on it. This is a Bible study channel. I go through the Bible, the King James Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. I like to study the Bible this way. I like to share it this way. And I like to explain what certain things mean and which parts pertain to us today and which parts don't. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right on into the study. And it's going to be almost kind of a straightforward reading. There's always lessons in the Bible to learn. And so let's go ahead and jump right on in here and get started. But also, once again, if you're new to this and you don't know much about the Bible, I do recommend you go to the first videos on my channel and start at Genesis chapter 1 and work your way up. It's a lot easier than trying to jump into the middle of everything and understand what's going on then. So, let's go ahead and get started here. Chapter 6. And the sons of the prophets said unto Elisha, Behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. Let us go, I pray thee, unto Jordan, and take thence every man a beam, and let us make us a place there where we may dwell. And he answered, Go ye. Now, if you're a little confused about the part that says is too strait for us, in the New King James it says too small for us. So at some point in time, this saying in Old English, that's what it meant. So if you ever read this before and wondered what it says, when it says dwell, it says it's too straight for us, it's too small. I guess they don't have enough room. But so it's a little, like I said, some of the Old English ways is a little confusing, but once you start learning them, it's pretty cool. Let's continue on verse 3. And one said, Be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So he went with them, and when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water. And he cried and said, Alas, master, for it was borrowed. And the man of God said, Where fell it? And he showed him the place. And he cut down a stick and cast it in thither, and the iron did swim. Therefore said he, Take it up to thee. And he put out his hand and took it. Then the king of Syria warred against Israel, and took counsel with his servants, saying, In such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent unto the king of Israel, saying, Beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him of, and saved himself there, not once nor twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. And he called his servants, and said unto them, Will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? And one of his servants said, None, my lord, O king. But Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we go? How shall we do? And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. And that would be the protective angels that, God had on the side of Elisha to ward off evil, the demons, or, Satan and his demons. So, yeah, it's the more humble we are and the more we follow the Lord, the more He protects us from Satan. So, we got to be more godly before God helps us be more godly. It's it's easy to explain and hard to understand at the same time. I'll give an example that, I wanted to quit smoking. And I always prayed to God that, make me hate these things. Now, I started smoking when I was 8 years old and smoked for almost 30 years. Smoking was very normal, a very common thing back when I was a kid. So, anyways, at the time, I loved the taste of cigarettes and, smoking and everything else. So, I wanted God to do the work for me. Lo and behold, I finally said, you know what? I kept asking, says, God, do you want me to quit? God, do you want me to quit? And it's like, then it clicked on me and says, well, you keep asking the question, so of course God wants you to quit. So I did. I finished off what cigarettes I had and stuff, and then I didn't buy any more. And it was a little rough and stuff, but it wasn't that rough. Of course, I did the chewing gum thing and everything else to, sway, being tempted, to go back to it or anything, but it wasn't that bad. It's like once a couple of weeks went by and everything else, I didn't really have the desire. It's like it took about a month, and it was a little stressful and stuff at first. I said, because quitting it is quite hard, especially smoking for most of your life. It is addictive. But it's like now I can't stand the smell of them. After that month and stuff and everything else, it's like whenever I would smell someone smoking or whatever, I couldn't stand the smell of it. I had no desire to ever start back. So God answered my prayer and showed me the path at the same time that, if you're willing to put in the footwork, as it's called, if you're willing to take the journey to do what you want to do, you're asking God for, He will help you as well. It says, but you got to put forth the work. So on our journey of trying to be more godly instead of worldly, you have to remember that. It's like, you have to do it, and then God will reinforce it. And so, if you're running into those problems like me in life where I'm wanting to be more godly, and, I will say lately in my life, I've not really come back worldly, but it's like some things kind of are with my language and with, being upset about things that I shouldn't be or anything else and having anger issues. I've kind of went back to the world on that a little bit, and I'm trying to get back out of that. And what's already happened to me in my past, it keeps coming up, says, well, you got to do it first and then stay that way. And then God will reinforce it once you do it. So if you're having troubles and problems and stuff in that nature, then hopefully that little testimony part, what happened to me in my life, will help you understand what you need to do. So let's continue on here in verse 19. And Elisha said unto them, this is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I skipped part. Let's go back here, verse 18. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, this is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom ye seek. But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass when they were coming to Samaria that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha, when he saw them, My father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? And he answered, Thou shalt not smite them. Wouldest thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master. And he prepared great provision for them, and when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. And it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all this host and went up and besieged Samaria. Now, we're seeing here in this section here where, these people were the enemy of the Israelites. And instead of killing them, they were nice to them instead. First they were blind and being led to an area where, that they easily would have been defeated and killed. Instead of doing so, they were nice to them instead. Kind of like how Jesus teaches us today to love thine enemies. We're not just to love thy neighbor, we're also to love those who are wanting to wrong us. So we have this lesson here as well that Elisha has done, and because of the kindness that was showed to them, that they didn't come into the land no more. It's like they didn't want to hurt them. So, anyways, continue on now. Verse 25. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. And as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, or out of the winepress? And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him, and I said unto her on the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him, and she hath hid her son. And it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he rent his clothes, and he passed by upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. Then he said, God do so, and more also to me, if the head of Elisha the son of Shaphat shall stand on him this day. So this woman was willing to, now of course you can definitely tell that the child was not a large child, it was a small child, a newborn, that they done this to. And there's a major lesson here. It's like, just because somebody gives you advice to something, if it's ungodly, don't take it. This woman was deceived by another woman because she wanted to keep her son, but was willing to commit cannibalism. Was so hungry, willing to eat anything, and the other woman was so desperate that she didn't hold no fault with herself. She blamed the other woman, saying, well, we ate my son and now she won't let me eat hers. It's like, that's how desperate they were. But there's a lot of people, just because there are certain gender or whatever, that doesn't make them good people. This was a mother, she had a child, and most of the time, you got all the saying today, we see it clearly in America bad with all the single mothers that they don't care for their children. Some of them do, but most of them don't. Most of all the crime and the mass shootings and everything else going on today is fatherless homes. Children raised in fatherless homes. They're raised with no guidance, no love, no this, no that. They're given, video games and all this other stuff to stay out of the hair of the mother while she does whatever she wants to do. And this woman at this time is no different. She's willing to, she killed and ate her own son, shared it with this other woman, and it was okay that she done this thing in her eyes because she was hungry. So this problem with some people has been around for a very long time. And I would venture to say that this was also a single mother, because if there was been a father, a husband in the household, he would not have let this have happened. So this single motherhood problem has been a plague for, centuries. I said, you got, a lot of women out there, though, they would sacrifice themselves first to feed their child before sacrificing their child to feed themselves. That's what a proper parent would do. So if you are a single mother and you're not doing right by your children, remember, it's better for you to raise your children better than for you to have better. And giving them things isn't always raising them better. Spare the rod, spoil the child. You got to raise the children in God's word, proper discipline, and proper teaching and education. I mean, you put yourself in that situation to be a single mother. Not all, but most of them do. So now you need to adult up and be a proper parent instead of worrying about, your own personal, gain or, whatever. But yeah, let's continue on here. But also the other thing is, like, there's a famine in the land, and the king's blaming Elisha, saying that he should die for this. And Elisha warned about the famine coming, and they didn't take provisions. They didn't prepare. So, anyways, continue on here. Verse 32. But Elisha sat in his house, and the elders sat with him. And the king sent a man from before him, but ere the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, See ye how this son of a murderer hath sent to take away mine head? Look, when the messenger cometh, shut the door, and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? And while he yet talked with him, behold, the messenger came down unto him, and he said, Behold, this evil is of the Lord. What should I wait for the Lord any longer? Then Elisha said, Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, Tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria. Then the Lord, on whose hand the king leaned, answered the man of God and said, Behold, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, might this thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And there were 4 leprous men at the entering in of the gate, and they said one to another, Why sit we here until we die? Now, I can't, I'm going to correct myself, as I can't remember if he warned that the famine was coming, or if the famine was happening because they were besieged by their enemy. I think, yeah, so I'm sorry, so go back to they were besieged by their enemy, and so it's like the same thing. When you're cut off from being able to provide for yourself, you will starve. And this is why, like here in America, they've got property taxes. They got taxes on this, taxes on that, and it's pretty much today that the average person cannot own enough land to provide for themselves anymore. And it's, trust me, it is done intentional. It's to get you addicted to their system, so if they want to control the population, all they got to do is shut off the food supply, the water supply, and the electricity. And then they're going to look at you and say, what are you going to do now? Obey us or die. That's, a proper government would always make sure that people had the ability to do for themselves and fend for themselves. And you can clearly see that Satan has gotten his hooks into the U.S. government and many governments all around the world big time. And not just the federal government of America, the state governments as well, because all these states allow these property taxes and stuff, which makes it impossible for the average person to buy some land and this, that, and the other, keep it and work it to, so they can fend for themselves while also having a job to pay their bills. And they always say, well, the money's used for the money's used for that, used for this. It's like, it doesn't matter what the money's used for. It's technically illegal. It's unconstitutional, and it's theft. Because if you don't pay your taxes, they take your land even though you bought it. And they're, even here in Tennessee where I live at, they will do it to me too. There's no state where we actually have a good government anymore in America. They all do stuff, that goes against the Constitution and against God. They always try to word it a certain way to make it sound pretty, but the fact of the matter is what the fact of the matter is. It's theft. It's ungodly and it's wrong. It's unconstitutional as well. But so stories in the Bible is to help people try to understand, what may come. To always be able to make sure there's always things set in place that you can take care of yourself. It's like, even if you say you can only have 1 acre of land, I would highly advise to get chickens. Chickens are easy to keep. You don't have to eat the chickens. You need the chicken eggs. And when the hen can no longer lay, then you can have that chicken. But you also have to make sure you have to study it, because there's a certain way to make sure that you can examine eggs that have been inseminated versus ones that haven't. But I said, if you're in that situation, but you can do these things. If you're in a city, you're out of luck. The most you can do is plant this little bitty garden thing to grow some herbs and stuff. You can't live off that. You have little flower pot gardens and this, that, and the other. It's not food. But to people in cities, it used to be like in these times, if you was in cities, you were better protected. But now the cities are used for evil instead of good. So, highly recommend getting out of the cities and finding some ways of getting something you can afford and then being able to be more self-sufficient. But yeah, anyways, let's continue on here. We were left off with the leprous men, at the entering of the gate. Verse 4. If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. If we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come and let us fall unto the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. If they kill us, we shall but die. And they rose up in the twilight to go unto the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, Lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents and their horses and their asses, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life. Now, of course, most proper military personnel would know to keep an eye on the enemy that's outside your city, holding you at bay. and they would have already known this and been, they'll say, hey, they're fleeing. But of course, when you have people that are in charge that are not wise, they don't know to do this type of stuff. And so here it is that they've made themselves captives in their own city, and there was no one holding them except their own fear. God already, made a way for their enemies to flee from them, but yet they stayed hidden because they were afraid. Continue on here. Wait, yeah, I'm sorry. Get back here. Right. Verse 8. And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent and did eat and drink and carried thence silver and gold and raiment, and went and hid it, and came again and entered into another tent and carried thence also, and went and hid it. Then they said one to another, we do not well. This day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace. If we tarry till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. So they came and called unto the porter of the city, and they told them, saying, we came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied and asses tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. And the king arose in the night and said unto his servants, I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we be hungry, therefore are they gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, when they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and get into the city. So, of course, we know another story like that called the Trojan horse. So that's what he believes, that the empty city is like a Trojan horse. It's a deceptive stuff to mislead the people. And when one of his servants answered and said, let some take, I pray thee, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Israel that are left in it. Behold, I say, they are even as the multitude of the Israelites that are consumed. And let us send and see. They took therefore 2 chariot horses, and the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, go and see. And they went after them unto Jordan, and lo, all the way was full of garments and vessels, which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told the king. And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. And the king appointed the Lord, on whose hand he leaned, to have the charge of the gate, and the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died, as the man of God had said, who spake when the king came down to him. And it came to pass, as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel, shall be tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. And that the Lord answered the man of God and said, now behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And so it fell out unto him, for the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died. And that's the end of this lesson. Right here at the 30-minute mark. Yay. I was going to add another chapter to that, and I says, no, let's go ahead and just end it there. So, I hope you enjoyed this lesson here. I always enjoy reading the Bible and learning the messages from it, the stories thereof. And it also, whenever I read like of people like Elijah and Elisha and stuff, these are the type of men that I want to be like. These are human men that was on the earth, Of course, I want to be like Jesus, but, that's also the Son of God. We would always, to be Christian, to be called Christian is to be Christ-like. So, of course, that's what we're all to be. But these people were like Christ on earth and born of human and not the Son of God. So, but it does give us, encouragement of say, hey, if they can do it, we should be able to do it too. Well, it does me anyways. It should do it for more people. But, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end this lesson here. So, once again, like I always say, remember to pray. Pray for yourself. Pray for your families, your friends. Pray for the lost. And as we're told, we're even to pray for our enemies. And the most prayer I do for my enemies and stuff is I pray that they get right with God, because once that happens, if that can happen, then their heart will be changed and they'll no longer be my enemy, they'll be my brethren. So, that's why we're to love all. And, even our enemies isn't hoping for that. But also we're to help protect ourselves. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to fight to protect ourselves and our families and stuff, especially if you're the man, God commands it. That's part about being a father and a husband. And just being a man is protecting the innocent and protecting your family. But we're also to love as well. And hopefully, change the hearts of those around us. So that, the more of us there are, the less of them there are. So right now, the enemy is great. I have a feeling that on the earth today, the enemy is larger than God's people. I think it's kind of always been that way, really. God helps us, and especially if we're living right in His eyes and stuff, or trying our best to anyways. He knows our hearts. He'll help us with that. But the Bible says the way to the lake of fire is broad, and the way to God's kingdom is narrow. Which means that it's going to be more people in the lake of fire than there will be in heaven. So, that's why we need to pray. We need to pray a lot, because the end times are coming, and they may be right around the corner. So, till next time, God bless, good night, and goodbye.